I was trying to do this. There we go. There we go. There we go. So, welcome to another episode of Professor Kimya's class. Let me give the intro. Good morning to you. Good day to you. We're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. And this is the way to start the revolution.
Okay.
Hey, so today on Professor Kimya's class, we're going to deal with like a part 2 from last week. And we dealt with the Black Patriarchy. Or, do men need to listen to women a little more? It went along the lines of that. And we're going to continue that conversation as soon as our esteemed professor shows up. But in the class with me, hanging out with me, is my brother from another mother and pops, the good DanTresOmi from the Where My Killer Tape At podcast. What's up, cuz?
Peace, brother. It's been a minute, man. And last time I was on here, we talked about sinners, so that was really dope with Professor Kimya.
We sure did. That was cool. Still one of my favorite movies. I'm still watching a lot of the stuff that people are putting out there about you didn't catch this, and here's an Easter egg, and blah blah blah. And man, it's just a masterpiece. It's truly just a masterpiece, man. So sinners.
I am surprised, Sekou. I'm actually disappointed in you that you have not done a juke joint in Hampton Roads. Like, I'm surprised you haven't done that. Like, if there's anybody that would do it, that would pull it off, it would be you, and you haven't done it. So, like, yeah. So I'm actually like, at this point, I thought you would be at the juke joint part 3. Like, that's what I thought you'd be at right now. Like, so.
That's intriguing, bro. That's intriguing. That's something I have to consider. Well, one of the good things is you're really versed in literature written by women. And one of the things you used to tell me years ago was, Seko, you need to read more books by women. And you're really versed in that. So when we talk about this Black Patriarchy, whenever the professor shows, I'm really looking forward to you bringing out quotes and references, because you're kind of collegiate as well. So I know you're gonna have citations. You're probably gonna bring up Dr. Bell Hooks.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Nikki Giovanni probably.
Yes, and Patricia Hill Collins, Feminista Jones, so Audrey Lord, the only person that's saying the name of our Lord, Audrey Lord, but I think, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think in general, we should be reading Black women authors, like in general. Like if you're into sci-fi, you should be reading Black women authors. If you're into comic books, you should be reading, and I'm not saying it should be like everything you read, but I feel like if you're into like a particular genre, you should be reading Black women that write that genre. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's science fiction, whether it's political essays, what's her name? Trese McMillan. Is it Trese McMillan you today?
Trese McMillan Cottom.
Trese McMillan Cottom. Like, she's someone we should all be reading.
And that's not Terry McMillan, right?
No, Trese. She writes politics. She writes political essays. She's really dope.
Okay.
But we should be reading her too. Like, we should be, if I'm reading fiction, I should be reading her too. Like, whatever genre I read or what everybody else reads, some of it should have, I'm not saying all of it, but there should be some portion of it where you be reading from Black women authors. I sincerely believe that. Whether you're reading comic books or you're reading political essays or you're reading, science fiction, if you're watching TV, you should be watching shows that are written by Black women. I just feel that way, like across the board.
Okay, and what's that going to bring us, bring men?
Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Can anybody name a writer of Black? There is only one writer right now on TV who can write Black men in a multifaceted fashion. There's only one.
Okay, all right. Let me take a stab at it. Let me take my old college try. The Hamptonian try, that would be Yvette Lee Bowser.
Nope. Issa Rae writes Black men the best. She's the best when it comes to, if you want, what kind of Black man that you want, she writes it.
All right. I got to push back on that, man.
So that's just
See,
someone
Bethany
that
Bowser, she wrote Girlfriends, and it was, who was the guy? Martin, whoever the guy was in that. She also did, Girlfriends. It had Kyle.
Well,
and
you're talking about she writes really well too. But I know you're talking about. She used the showrunner for Forever. Mara Brock Akil. Thank you. My partner just said Mara Brock Akil also writes black men really well. She was the showrunner for the show on Netflix Forever. But Issa Rae writes black men in all his facets. Like if there's anybody that does it. So that's why we should, even better than Spike Lee, but if there's anybody right now who writes black men the best, is Issa Rae.
Better than Spike Lee?
Better than Spike Lee. I know that's blasphemous for a lot of people, but yep.
All right.
So that's why you should be reading, you should be following the work of black women. Oh yeah.
All right, so classmates, I want to say that our esteemed professor has arrived. So all hail Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis, our professor. All hail. I said earlier, we're all in our places with bright, shiny faces, and this is the way we start the revolution. So it's Seko Varner, your favorite professor's pet. I have my man DanTresOmi, my brother from another mother and pops, and now the esteemed, the highly sought after, the Delta Queen. Doc.
Can I jump in, Seko, real quick? And you should change your intro to, instead of being the professor's pet, you should be the showstopper party rocker. That's it right there.
Old hip hop.
Okay.
Across the board, I seen him do all genres. I seen him rock parties of all genres. So I seen him do with white folks too. Like he'd be like, watch this, and he gets them to turn up. Yo, what are you doing?
Yeah, I can rock with white folks. So Doc, today this is part 2. This is Black Patriarchy. All right, I can't wait to see what scholarly references and information you pull out to teach me. Danny's probably already there. That we still have some work to do on the patriarchy.
I still need to learn.
Okay, so this is like when my wonderful scholar students are talking in the classroom before I arrive. And I actually do that on purpose because I love for my scholars to be conversing, to learn from each other. And so you all were talking about a range of issues, including the representation of black men in Hollywood. So for starters, why do you think that's important for the representation of black men in Hollywood to be something that makes you comfortable?
Well, it's not even a matter of making me comfortable. I just like I want to see what I want to see represented is. I'm not, and I know it's impossible, but I want to be able to say that somebody on the screen reminds me of somebody that I know, right? Or somebody that I used to know, or someone or my like for example the show Forever, the son reminded me of my son, right? That's why I cried through like every episode. Like he reminded me of my son, the things that he would do, and that when we say representation, that's what we want to see. And oftentimes, really, to be quite honest, before black women started writing television, when we saw black men on TV on the movie screen, it was either, the hard-bodied thug gangster, and then the righteous, uplifting, perfect black man. It was those two. There was never no nuances. There's no in between. There's no, you know what I'm saying? And especially during the blaxploitation era, right? So you never saw, and if we saw like a radical black man, he was like a caricature. He wasn't even like a person that provided solutions. It was like a caricature of a conspiracy theorist. So when we saw that on the screen, it wasn't the black people that I see every day, in my community.
Okay, thank you for saying that. Yes, Seko.
Now, I was going to echo and pretty much salute everything that Dan said. I think it was important, and to be honest with you, whenever I saw, one of us show up on TV, in my house, it was a big deal. So my parents made me sit down and watch Star Trek because Lieutenant Uhura was on there. We watched some of the shows. Like my parents didn't let me watch a lot when I was really young in New York. Like I remember seeing the opening to Good Times, but they never let me watch the whole Good Times show. I remember seeing the opening to the Jeffersons, but I didn't see the real Jeffersons until I was a little older. So it was a big deal in our household. And I think it was because my parents were really intentional about making sure that I had a lot of representation wherever that representation occurred, that celebrated and informed me on how I should be. So I think that's why Danny and I were talking about the importance of a Issa Rae, of a Yvette Lee Bowser, of the other sister. I can't think of the other sister's name. Mara Brock Akil. Writing men in totality, because you're right. It was very limited. We could go back to In Living Color, and whenever a really intelligent guy came on, he was, except for the Wrath of Farrakhan. Except for the Wrath of Farrakhan, when the brother showed up talking intelligently, he was actually not intelligent. He was just stringing a lot of words together, and it was just kind of weird. But Danny's point was that until black women started writing for black men were very limited. And I think so that was the nuance there. He was saying until the sisters took over, we were limited, even when we were writing for ourselves.
Okay.
Hey, can I jump in real quick? I'm glad you mentioned Nichelle Nichols. That's why your folks are so dope, Sekou. Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, was going to quit after the first season, right? And what happened was she went to a dinner, and the late great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King saw her, and he was like, "Hey, yo, you are the bomb, sister. You don't know how much you blah, 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 blah." And after that conversation, she stayed on the show. So just wanted to show that whole thing was intentional. And shout out to Nichelle Nicole. I got to meet freaking bomb. Like, yeah, but yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, no, I appreciate you saying that, because she's very profound to this day. So here's something I want to throw back at you too, my brothers. Why do black women have to do that for you all? And let's think about this from centuries, from the history. Why is it black women when black men are actually the ones who are in charge of a lot of the spaces for black voices? Why black women? Because Seko, you and I talked about this 2 weeks ago when I had to pick on you.
You ain't have to.
I'm ready to answer the question.
Why black women got to do that for y'all?
I'm ready to answer the question.
Like we ain't got to do something for ourselves.
Number one is because
I'm glad you said. Go ahead,
Number
Dan.
one is because a lot of men deal with respectability politics, right? So, and a lot of men felt that if we were in Hollywood, that it was respectability that was going to get us in those doors, right? Whereas for a lot of women, a lot of black women, right, they rejected those respectability politics. And when they came into the room, they were like, we're not doing that, right? Because respectability politics would say that, yes, we have two types of men, right? So if you look at during the Blaxploitation era, you have like the pimps, right? And then you have the straightforward revolutionary, right? There was no nuance. And then when it came to the women, it was just the hoes, and then the women who were not that, right? Right?
Okay.
So black women rejected that and were like, we're not doing that. When we come into the boardrooms, we come into the writing rooms, we're not doing that.
Actually, black women did not reject that though.
Okay.
So I want black people, and this is a global thing for our people, but I want black people to understand. In these spaces that are not black owned and black operated, the non-blacks are going to let you feel radical, but they pat you on the back in your black radicalism. It's going to be within their comfort zone, okay? So there's still compliance, and that's why I want black people, instead of using contemporary terminology like the one you just used, the phrase you use, just like when black people use code switching and imposter syndrome, I want our people to learn the century of work. like the Du Bois's double consciousness, which was very much critiqued, but learned the dueling identity. Hey, Emmanuel, thank you for being here as always. So the double consciousness, the dueling identity that Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote. So all of this worked for centuries so that we don't have to use contemporary language and pretend that somehow we've really maneuvered the system without still playing the game. These black women, number one, should not be the voices for black men, number one.
True.
Okay? Because if black men consider themselves the voices for black people, despite not doing the majority of the labor for black people, and I'm not talking about maternity type stuff, I'm talking about the work of centuries of black trailblazers are not all black men, and they're not even mostly black men. So why now are black women doing the work? And I talked about that a couple weeks ago. We've also talked about that when we discussed Amy Ashwood Garvey, Amy Jackie Garvey, what it means for black women, despite how knowledgeable, despite how much effort, we're still considered the housekeepers by our own men. We're still considered the administrative assistants. And that happens in every black radical group. That's why one thing I always tell people, a black radical group that's actually pro-women tends to be run by non-blacks, actually. And that's where their funding mostly is as well. So when you see black women who are the leaders of putting positive images of black men in Hollywood, despite black men being the creators of the majority of shows and majority of movies, right? Then that actually should be frightening to our people. Because again, black women are told to come clean up the house. They're told to breastfeed the baby. They're told to make dinner. They're told to have two jobs. You work the 9 to 5, then you come home and you sweep the kitchen. Okay? And so, and Emmanuel said we absolutely have to stop devaluing our scholars. They lay out the groundwork. That's right. We have centuries of black scholars. So that's why when black people use contemporary language, I always say, okay, well, who came before that, right? So that's one thing. Before we celebrate the black women like Issa Rae, let's talk about why they even feel obligated to do that. Because my research regarding black health, a lot of it is based on black men's health. But even then, I tell black men, I'm not doing you a favor, right? I still want black men to be the trailblazers for their own health. When I host events to talk about prostate cancer, I always say there's a reason why it tends to be the women in the audience and not the men.
Wow.
We're not the ones testing your scrotum.
Wow.
Okay? That needs to be you all doing that yourselves and going to the doctor to get the regular prostate check, right? So it's the same thing when talking about what black women are doing in Hollywood. It doesn't mean that it has to stop. It doesn't mean black women need to stop doing it, just like I won't stop doing work regarding black men's health. However, never do I want people to say black women are taking the lead. Because if y'all really, really think we're taking the lead, then I want black people to start recognizing centuries of black women trailblazers as the lead, and then ask why are black men considered the leaders of nearly every religious collective, nearly every black business collective, nearly every pro-black, black power, black radical, black nationalist, Pan-African, even African nationalist on African lands collective. If we're taking the lead from time to time as black women, then why are these men up on the front lines?
I thought my partner was
I think Maggie Lena Walker would
I know.
disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think Maggie Lena Walker would disagree with you.
No, she wouldn't.
What was that? You said
I
who?
know her more than you do.
You said who?
Maggie Lena Walker. Matter of fact, I want to say shout out to Maggie Lena Walker, the great ancestor, the elevated. We got a chance to walk her house over the weekend. Yeah, I was up in RVA over the weekend, man.
First of all, this is an example of black men trying to take over something. I am from Richmond, VA, born and raised.
Okay.
I am the one, Magdalena Walker High
Okay.
School. I'm the one where the statue's located. I'm the one who did the Magdalena Walker presentation and PowerPoint slide. Now you're the black man expert on Magdalena Walker. But go ahead, tourist. Go ahead, tourist.
I never claimed to be.
Go ahead, black man tourist.
I went because of what you said. See, that's
crazy.
crazy. And that's one thing that we got to deal with. When we get advised, you need to go check out the tour. Okay. I go check out the tour and I love it. And now I'm getting lambasted because I listen. See, okay.
I'm lambasting you because you said Magdalena Walker. I'm lambasting you because you said Magdalena Walker would disagree with what I said, but you don't know that about Magdalena Walker.
If we look at Magdalena Walker and all the things that she did, if we look at what Magdalena Walker did, and you pointed this out in your presentation, all of a
sudden you an expert.
That's why black Americans are the worst tourists globally. We're the worst tourists, and also in Richmond, VA. Now you're trying to pretend to be an expert on Magdalena Walker speaking regarding gender. Okay, number one, I have books about Magdalena Walker and peer-reviewed journal articles about Magdalena Walker. So I tell our people, until you've actually read more, and actually her family does presentations regarding black wealth building as well, it has to be more than something that you felt about her. Like, why would you feel like she would disagree with what I said, Brother Varner?
I said that she would disagree because of what she accomplished.
What's it got to do with what I said?
Because she didn't wait for the brothers to take the lead. She did it.
Is that... Okay, let's take a turn around the corner. Okay. Remember last time, 2 weeks ago, I told you that this is where black men are compared to white people. So that's a very white people thing to say. Okay. When I'm talking about gender within our culture of people, which is not a new concept, all right, you're saying, well, this black woman did something. So therefore, that negates what you just said.
You said that, okay. I can't quote what you said. I should have written it down maybe, so I could have been better prepared for this dialogue.
You didn't do your homework.
Okay, and the crazy thing is I have the pencil right here. I was bringing up Magdalena Walker as an example of when a sister said, I'm going to go ahead and do for self and others. And I don't necessarily need someone to lead me in that.
So what's the Magdalena Walker's background, since you're a tourist? Taught you something. What's her background?
That's the part that I'm bringing up.
Can I advise you to stop?
I'm not bringing up anything else. That's the part I'm bringing up. And
don't try to run now, my brother.
I ain't running. That's the only part that I'm bringing up. I'm clarifying. But go. You know what? Make your point. Look, I'm the student. Make your point. Go ahead, Doc.
When you look at the statue, it talks. When you look at, you don't have to back out. I'm just telling you. Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is what we call a tautological or circular logic or circular argument. Okay, because it is an attempt to refute something without the evidence and the interpretation of something that you claim. So therefore, it doesn't really refute what I'm saying at all. So, okay, when you learn the background, like when you go to the monument that we have, born and raised in RVA, I ain't from no county, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, because we don't have counties, okay? When you go to the monument, you'll see the timeline that is put there, and it shows all the work that was done, including the secret society work. If you read the book about Magdalena Walker that a black woman wrote, you will hear about what her mother did. And when her father passed away, she and her sibling had to help her mother clean wealthy white people's clothes. She actually learned a lot from a wealthy white woman in terms of appreciating the hard work she's learned from her mother and then focusing on financial development. Magdalena Walker noticed, of course, racial disparities because of where she came from. And of course, Richmond, VA was the second capital of the Confederacy as well. Magdalena Walker also noticed gender variance because black men back then, because you got to think about what was going on early 19th century, late 19th century, and early 20th century. Black men were the leaders of political power for black people, right? If you understand Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, black men, because the comparison group was with white men. And that's also why we do a lot of research now, like even my suicide research regarding black elected officials and occupational status compares black men with white men because that's the largest population representation. So I want you to see all that means that Magdalena Walker did not pretend gender neutrality. She recognizes gender variance back then. That's something that she had to observe. As black women, when we recognize race, we also recognize socioeconomic status. We also recognize sexuality, gender, religions. Magdalena Walker also became a trailblazer for disability rights as she got older because she ended up in a wheelchair. So, Seko brought this up, so I just had to give you that. Don't get quiet now, though.
Oh no, I'm letting you teach. Go ahead and teach.
You brought it up though, so I'm just saying. I just want you to see.
You went in that direction. So glad you went in that direction because we got a chance to celebrate the elevated Magdalena Walker.
Okay, so now you're trying to kind of act like I'm overreacting and trying to go around the corner. And again, this is a racial.
We all know that the Toastmaster group that I helped found. We named it, and I actually brought the name up. We named ourselves the Walkers in celebration of Magdalena Walker.
Okay.
Good.
Hey, I've been learning about her since 10th grade. I think that's the first time I saw her name. So, love the sister.
Yep. So she recognized what it meant to be a black woman doing that, right?
My point exactly. Okay.
Is that your point?
I want to say this. She raised the Q as well. So hey,
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm joking. I'm combing love. I was just gonna make a little joke. We can't be perfect.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Teach. Go ahead.
Real quick. I was at a Juneteenth celebration on last Thursday, and they played Atomic Dog, and I only saw one Q get up, and I was just like, I've never seen that in my entire life. One Q get up. So I was like,
they come solo dogs.
Q's get up, but yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
I wasn't.
All right.
I knew you would have been up on stage. I knew you would have been front and center. I'm just saying overall, I didn't see that's the first time I've seen that in my life.
I'm sure it was still exciting though.
In Ohio, in the capital of the phone. I'm going off tangent. I'm sorry, Doc.
I love George Clinton. I'm a big fan of George Clinton. I've seen him in concert twice. So yeah.
Hey, can we, Doc? Before you continue, and I'm not interrupting you. I just wanted to bring up this great comment from Emmanuel. I think that's our problem. We compare ourselves to white men and their system of patriarchy, and there are metrics for leadership. Just wanted to salute Emmanuel. He always brings some really cogent statements to the table. He loved your show, by the way. So,
I always appreciate Manuel. So, Manuel, I do want to highlight that there's a reason why we call it Black Patriarchy, because I don't want people to feel like only one group has patriarchy, and I want people to feel like patriarchy was created by Europeans, because that's not the case. It just had different terminology. But patriarchy is based on male dominance, or you can look at it boys and men dominance. So it's very difficult to actually find African and indigenous to Western Hemisphere as well, and Asian cultures in which girls and women are the dominant gender group. A lot of times when there's matriarchal cultures, it's oftentimes based on this notion of nurturers and less often government formats. So I just want to keep that in mind when you talk about comparing to white people. It's actually really not a comparison to white people unless you're talking about economic comparison, which is we do economic comparisons based on data representation, because in European nations, parts of Canada and USA, white people are the population size majority. So that's why there would be that comparison. But it's not pretending that white people are the patriarchy. It's patriarchy is among black people as well. Black people just have different types of disguises and excuses. And I also want to highlight, so again, so back to Seko Varner's point, just so the rest of my wonderful scholars understand. So Maggie L. Walker did understand gender variance. Okay, she understood being a black woman who was a trailblazer. So she didn't consider herself, the same way she didn't consider herself race neutral, she also didn't consider herself gender neutral. So I do want to highlight that. But yeah, so there's different understandings for patriarchy. So patriarchy does not mean necessarily you are violent. And patriarchy also requires girls and women and gender non-identifying people to be compliant and sometimes often very supportive. Oftentimes very opposed to women being decision makers and in charge. So patriarchy, though, is about power. It's about gender-based power. It doesn't mean that someone's evil, mean. So that's why you can find men-dominant collectives, and the men are very loving, very polite, similar to the men as head of household notion. People don't see a problem with it because this man is really cool, yo, he's cool. But again, it's this idea of being the decision maker. And everyone else can make decisions, but the final say-so is here. And so that's something that you and I also talked about that 2 weeks ago as well.
You just kind of brought up that there was a difference in matriarchal societies. Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Yep. Yeah, so matriarchy means that it would be based on girls and women being the power dominant, and it doesn't necessarily mean population based. It means who are the decision makers and who are the controllers of the organizations and institutions. So historically, if you're looking at thousands of years of various African collectives, even before it was formed into nations, it's very difficult to find matriarchal cultures unless the focus is on nurturers. So the women dominance oftentimes would be presented as because men were off into war or men were off hunting or something of that sort. So there are some cultures that are matriarchal, women dominant, but a lot of times it's not as documented. It's difficult to find a lot of writings and historical accounts about it. But even with that being the case, we don't want people to misinterpret that to mean that men dominance is something that's natural, biological, genetic. A lot of times people will say things like chromosomes, X and Y, you know your gender since birth. They'll say all types of things. And that's why I always tell people, you really don't know much about the variance in genitalia among humans since the origins of humans. You don't know the meaning of chromosomes unless a medical doctor tells you, and that could be researched again 15 years from now and they could find something completely different. The same thing with hormonal variants. Most people do not know their hormone levels. Sometimes the most masculine man, including a Q dog maybe, might have more estrogen than he would even imagine. Right?
I'm glad you brought that up because I really want to debunk something that keeps coming up even now, is that goddamn Moynihan report, right? That Moynihan report by Patrick Moynihan, who's a senator out of New York, and he wrote a report in the 60s that even Huey Newton, my hero, even Huey Newton was quoting. And they were saying that the problem with black families is that they're matriarchal. And even though they're not matriarchal in the United States. And he used the word matriarchal at that time. And yeah, so because I know a lot of people like to throw out the Moynihan report. I know there's a book that a lot of people are making book clubs out of. I actually threw my copy away because when I started reading it, he quotes the Moynihan report, and I'm like, oh, no, we're not doing that. So like, yeah, so that he talks about matriarchal, and he's saying that black households are matriarchal, and that's the problem. So just wanted to point that out. So
Yes, so a lot of times when they say matriarchal, they're talking about single mothers. That's
yes.
oftentimes what they're talking about. But there are instances in our culture where there are families where the Black woman is the breadwinner or considered the head of household, not because a man's a punk, but because there are stay-at-home husbands, stay-at-home fathers. That's very rare, but it does happen. There are some people who are brave enough to go contrary to what people tell them is blackness, because I always tell people we have various African cultures and we could have various Black cultures and still find a commonality among us, but people are so busy trying to label and stigmatize everything that they're scared to do something that might work for themselves and their families. So a lot of times also we have some old sociology research that talks about patriarchy that still exists in single mother households because the government replaces the father. So it would be patriarchy because the government would be the representation of patriarchy. And so there are some sociologists who have studied that over the years, that it's not matriarchal just because there's only a woman there. Now the government's replaced that. But I also want us to remember that government replacing that is still tax-paid services. So it's not a handout. I always want Black folks to remember, it's not a handout when we're paying for it.
Yep.
It all exists because of our taxes.
All right. We want to take a quick commercial break. Dan Trese, man, tell us a little bit about the podcast.
My podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where My Killer Tape At is a podcast. Let's be honest, the last couple of years, I've just been geeking out. We've been geeking out on IPs, whether it's comic books, movies. So, but we did, my family, check it out, my family, after we did the Sinners joint here, my family, meaning me and my partner and our children, we did an episode on Sinners. And that was actually really dope. We got a lot of feedback from that. So, but we still geeked out. I mean, they're my offspring. We still geeked out. So, yeah. So we do a lot of geeking out on there. We're about to do the 35th anniversary of The Last Dragon, or the 40th anniversary of The Last Dragon. We're about to do that coming up soon. So, yeah, we do geek out a lot of that stuff. Yep.
All right. So look, if you haven't done so, you definitely need to check out the Where My Killer Tape At podcast. That's where you can find the great DanTresOmi and everything that he brings to the table. I want to take a little moment to highlight the sponsor of this show.
You good?
We have to fix our minds. We are still deeply wounded people.
So in order for us to have generational wealth, we must have mental wealth first.
Check this out. So this is proof that you can absolutely train your brain and your body, which are your servants, not the master.
No idea or vision is too large, as long as you are able to outline the steps to get it done. So it's not a matter of if you can do it, it's how.
How to truly be the bank. I like to try things out in small dollars. I think a misconception is that you have to have millions of dollars to do note investing. And it's not that. There's a lot of notes out there that people can buy for a few $100s or a few $1,000s.
So if you start looking at it as not a solid structure, but just a collection of things that need to be disentangled, then eventually that wall doesn't look so scary.
It's not worth it to give up because there's other people on the other side that need you to be here. It's not worth it because there's something that you were born with that only you can do. There is an antidote to somebody's cancer that only you carry.
The big thing is you gotta want more. You gotta have accountability around you. Don't sit around people that are fine with their situation. You gotta have people that they want more as well. Because you're gonna run into people that are gonna tell you, why can't you just be satisfied? And that's the Scarface thing. You be happy, like in the movie. You should be happy with what you have. No, you be happy.
just breathe. So Martin Lawrence had it right on Bad Boys. Woosah. You gotta learn the woosah.
I don't know about her, but I've been free ever since. To the point that when she got remarried, I paid for part of her wedding.
Oh boy, you think you so special. Boys don't cry. Boy, you gon' fear me if you don't fear nobody else. Why would we ever choose to give our children something to cry about?
Right, so that's my documentary. That's Generational Flip. That's episode 4. I want to shout out the young poet at the very end.
Who is that guy? Who is that guy?
That's the son of infamous DanTresOmi. That's what he puts out. That's the type of work he does. Go ahead, Daddy.
Thank you. Yo, I appreciate you putting him on there. And I remember you sent me the video and I was watching it. And then when he came up, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that at all. So like you told me he was in it, but,
now
yeah.
you do a whole talk on how we have disciplined our children based upon the discipline that we experience. I'm sorry, not the discipline, but the horrors that we experience during the enslavement period. And even though you and I raised our children differently, I do respect and value what you brought to the table as a father when you talked about how you should raise your children. So that it was kind of interesting to hear your son parrot some of the same things that you were saying.
Yeah.
And we were raising our kids around the same time. We had hug life. They were dealing with thug life. We had hug life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
thank
back
you
to
for
our
that.
back to our esteemed professor, Doc. Go ahead and continue teaching.
All right, so Brother Emmanuel said about the myth of the alpha male. So it goes back to what I was saying about the thank you for all your comments, Emmanuel. So it's just like when we talk about XY chromosomes, talk about estrogen, testosterone. This is not something that people really know as much about. It's more so the social learning, what people are taught to believe. It's not based on scientific facts, medical facts. The alpha male thing is like a personality type. A lot of times, outspokenness, people will say alpha male. If a woman's outspoken, they'll say alpha female. And again, humans love categories. So, that's just something about, if you read Charles Tilly's work regarding categorical inequalities, humans just don't know how to just coexist. We do rankings since the origins of humans based on height, feet, based on personality type, who's that more outspoken, based on knowledge sharing. And so if you add demographics to it, such as gender, then it just adds to people's assumptions that are not based on facts most of the time. So yeah.
So what do we do with all this information? What do we do? What can we do differently in our communities? And I'll let. I'm sorry, you're in charge here.
No, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. What do we do here? What's our takeaway?
Yeah. So number one, we're talking about Black men's patriarchy. So this is something that Black men can really handle. Black women can contribute. However, I do want to highlight when Black women are struggling mentally, physically, all types of stuff, rarely, and I mean fully to the top of my tongue, rarely are Black men visible and vocal when Black women are struggling.
I agree with that.
This includes in most Black families. Okay?
I agree with that.
All right. So if that is the case, if Black women are holding stuff, because I don't hold things on my back. Like when people say Black women can take a break from political stuff, I don't hold people's politics on my back anyway. I don't hold entire nations and stuff on my back regardless. So, but that also connects with our people. I don't hold black men on my back either. I love black men. My family's mostly men. But that's something y'all gotta take care of. Because when things are going wrong with black women and black girls as collectives, that includes whether it's police violence, domestic violence, anything. Black men are too busy. Black men are still focusing on black men's problems. So therefore, when it comes to black men's patriarchy, most black men will not be interested in addressing that. Why? Because most black men see other issues and they think that black men dominance is normal. Again, most black men, if you give them a certain stage to say this, will claim that black men are the most oppressed humans in the world, historically and currently, that black men's problems are the problems for black people to address.
Yep.
They're the problems for black families.
Yep.
And a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of black men who even say it are not thinking about it from like a mental, physical health standpoint. They're thinking about like they're the financial contributions to families. And I always say, black men, you have to be contributing more than money though, right? But again, gender is learned. Again, gender is not biological. Mm-hmm. Gender is not genetic in that sense. It's a learned behavior. So if you come from a culture, and this is not, Europeans do not force this on our people. These are particular cultures, and it's passed for centuries. If you come from a culture where you're taught that boyhood and manhood is very narrow, it doesn't matter what you think and feel. What matters is what you're told. You better at least pretend to think and feel. Then that's how it's going to be. The same way when I do black financial planning programs, like I did one for a Juneteenth event last week, a black man came up to me and he told me that the way he collects money is based on what grandma taught. I always tell people, you cannot go based on what is taught by family all the time. You have to understand what black folks had to do over the centuries, like putting money in a bra, putting money in a pillow, putting money in a case in the house. That's not how it is now. It should not be that way now, okay? So the same thing has to apply when we're talking about gender variance as well. Is something working for your environment? If you think it's working, okay, good for you, okay?
Yeah, I think it's something to ponder. I think those are some really interesting things to ponder. Are these norms currently working for us? What would you say, Dan?
No, I agree, and I think we'll even tell black women that they have to be black first and all the women's stuff. We actually tell them that they have to put that stuff on the back burner. Mm-hmm. We literally tell them that. I've seen people say, well, you're black first. You're black first. You're not a black woman, you're black first. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen that happen. I've actually done that. Like when I was younger, I've actually done that. So yeah, so like we literally and it's funny because when it comes to black liberation, it's really just white supremacy and blackface. You know what I mean? When we talk black liberation, it's really white supremacy and blackface. We completely ignore women. Let's not even talk about children. We completely ignore women, right? We really do, right? When it comes to like police, I'm gonna give you an example. When it comes to like police brutality, we'll march. Well, actually, we don't even march for a black man. Women don't march for black men. You know what I mean? But if it's for black women, you won't show up. You won't show up.
I think that's changing. I think I know we showed up for Tawana. I know we showed up for. Oh man, what's the queen?
You got to think. Look, you got to think. You got to be like, oh, you got to think.
Well, come on, Dan. You know me.
You're not.
I don't hold names in my head. You know,
no, I feel you. I'm old too.
I'm
old too,
right.
But you're not.
All right.
You're not spitting it out. You know what I mean? Like
Tawana Brawley. What was the queen? The elevator. What was the elevator's name? Who? Her boyfriend did the warning shot. Tawana. That wasn't Tawana. Her boyfriend did.
No, I got you. Shot. I'm just saying. Overall, in general,
So what black men have had this issue that's been covered all over the news and protests?
Be honest with you, George Floyd is the one that pops up in my head, and I know there's some others. There was a guy in Brooklyn in Bensonhurst. I don't keep those names in my head.
And in Baltimore, Freddie Gray.
Freddie Gray. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's my point. But I'm thinking now things are different.
Really?
But not. I think things are changing. Not things are different. I think things are changing because I have images, and half of the image, these are images that of some of our ancestry who were taken too early, who were taken by police violence. Half of them are men, half of them are women. So now that's making me wonder, did a woman create that image?
Probably.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
surprise, 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 surprise.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Black Lives Matter was started by black women. Like, it's like, we could go on, and it's just like, and when we write the history, we exclude them. Right? When we write the history, we exclude them. Like,
And Magdalena Walker recognized that too, by the way.
You know what I'm saying?
He did. I also want to highlight, I'm glad you said that. I want to take this moment and highlight somebody that we need to highlight. All right, let's see. Hopefully this is going to work.
Oh yeah. Oh man, it's wild because people use that meme of her with the police officer and the gun, and they don't even know who she is. That's crazy, bro. Yep.
Okay, so why should we highlight Gloria Richardson?
Yeah, Seko. This is the one. That's the picture everybody uses online. Everybody uses that picture online, but they don't even know her name. But answer her question, Seko.
Yo, DanTres, man, do you remember Clever Speaks?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of her productions. So I wanted to take this moment to highlight one of our strong sisters productions.
Why?
So you can go to, let's see where we can go. You can go to Clever Communities in Action. Go to their YouTube channel. Yeah, we need to get. Did I subscribe? Let me give it a thumbs up. I gave you the thumbs up already. All right. Gloria Richardson. She's actually doing a series on people that we need to highlight in our community. So,
but she just asked you a question.
Yeah. So why? But why? Why is that relevant?
Oh, I wanted to take a moment to highlight Star and the work that she's doing. And I like this particular video that she did. She's doing a series on roots and routes. So,
yeah. So how does that pertain to what's discussed right now, though?
Well, no. We did talk earlier about how we need to, consume more content made by sisters. And so I'm highlighting some content made by sisters. So
here's the thing. I actually don't really care about consuming more content made by sisters when it comes to black men patriarchy.
Okay,
explain, because
that goes back to what I said.
No, because I feel like in general we all should. I feel like we all should consume content.
Yeah, but that
like whether I'm reading a comic book, a science fiction novel, essay, like I definitely feel like we should.
Yes. So that should be read in general, but that can't be when the discussion is black patriarchy. I consider that a scapegoat from really addressing power disparities among our people. Similar to, and again, if we were talking about race, if we were among non-blacks and we told non-blacks that there's an issue of not just injustices, but in terms of who voices were heard the most, and then non-blacks said, well, I've read more black authors. Dun, dun, dun. Would you consider that the conclusion for the discussion?
Nah. And the reason why I say that is because I don't care what non-blacks are reading. Like I care
Right.
what our people are reading. Like I don't.
Right. So
I mean, and you know, and I do have non-black homies that be like comrades that be like, yeah. I did
So
read
right.
that. Okay,
Right.
cool, good for you. But
Yep.
What are my students reading? What are my babies reading? You know what I mean? What is my son spitting when he gets on the mic? Like I'm worried about that. What is when me and Seko link up? What are we talking about over a beer? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now translate that to black men and black women. I don't care how many black women's books and creations that black men can say that they've read and consumed. Mm-hmm. Because some of the biggest domestic abusers are black men who read all types of black women's stuff. They'll quote Angela Davis every day. But yet and still, they're not dissecting and dismantling the black men dominance that they've taught as normal.
I'm gonna push back on that.
Good.
I'm push back on that because I do the black men that I do hear spitting Angela Davis, when I ask them, what books have you read, they quiet. It's real easy for me to quote Malcolm and then not read the autobiography of Malcolm. People do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you an even simpler example. People quote the Bible all the time and they ain't never read the Bible.
Yeah, that's right. So you're actually agreeing. That right. You're going with what that's what I just said. That's what I just said.
So when somebody says to me, "I've read this," I'm gonna be like, anybody who comes through my door, I'm gonna be like, well, what did you read? You know what I mean? Like, because people could do that all the time.
Yeah. So that's my point. The reading part is not the crux of actual making changes in actions. Like I tell my students, you can read everything in my course, but now I want to see what you're doing in our communities.
Truly.
Yeah, but
you can know a theory.
I think that Danny's strategy is a great strategy because the more that a person surrounds themselves with these thoughts, these creations, these books, these videos, the less likely they are to find to place a woman below somebody
What?
else.
Are you serious right now? So instead of that is complete nonsense. That is complete nonsense. Again, if you look at it from a racial standpoint, that's like telling non-blacks that if they read enough black books, then now they comprehend and they don't have to really go around black people. All they do is read black books. I'm not exaggerating it. I'm not exaggerating it. Black men need to actually learn, in addition to reading, learn how to actually interact with black women in spaces in which black men are not the head Negroes in charge.
Okay, but that's different. That's different from I agree. That's different. That's different from. Again, I'm gonna give you a best example. During the pandemic, white folks bought all these books by black authors, but guess what we learned? They didn't read them.
That's my point. So you all are giving black men a reading list. Like when I collaborate mostly with black men, and this includes black men of various religious backgrounds, various education levels, and they love to tell me who they're reading. They love to quote the black women radicals, the famous ones by the way, which is another form of tokenism. Because if you only know the black women who are well known, then you don't know the full span of what black women have done over the centuries, by the way. But then I ask these black men, what organizations are you a member of? Who's the president? Who's the second president? Who's the sergeant at arms? Who's the media outlet? This, and this. And it's a bunch of HNICs doing all the work, but they brag about reading about black women. I tell people, I don't want you walking around wearing a Stand with Black Women pin on. I don't want you being part of a Support Black Women book club. I want to see what you can do when you're in the trenches with black women. That's all I sincerely care about. Because it's the same thing as when black people got brainwashed by communism, walking around with the German Communist Manifesto in their hand 50 plus years ago. Communism had nothing to do with elevating black people, but they were running around army men and so forth excited about that without knowing how to apply it to our people. And Harold Cruz explains that problem as well, as do former military black men. They're like, black men were proud running around with Communist Manifesto, but then they were told, apply it to our people. They didn't know how to do that, which is why Harold Cruz and other black people stopped being communists, because they're like, this really doesn't apply to us. So therefore, reading something, if you don't know how to apply it in real life, it's a failure. And you're expecting us to wait around for your failure.
I agree.
And we don't have to do that. We don't have to wait for you to learn how to connect your theory that you're reading to real life. We don't have to be the least bit interested in that.
Right.
All right. I still think it's a good step. Let me.
A good step. We 5 centuries later, we got to wait for y'all steps at the 5 centuries.
But you know what? And I know. No. I don't want to be this dude. I don't want to be this dude. But I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. I get a lot of flack for this on. That's why I deleted my threads, because we're expecting brothers to be reading feminist literature and then not reading feminist literature.
I don't believe in feminism.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just
I'm not a feminist.
Like we want brothers to read Dr. Bell Hooks, and they're not reading Dr. Bell Hooks.
They don't have to read Bell Hooks.
I'm just saying. Hold on.
We have more than Bell Hooks.
No. Hold on. Because hold on. And look, Doc. I feel you, right? But we don't give babes steak, right? We give them milk, right? And we want brothers to make these leaps and bounds, but we at the same time we got to do baby steps. And I don't
force black people to read anything. Actually, right. That's one thing that you'll learn from other writers like C.L.R. James, E. Franklin Frazier. They did not. John Henrik Clarke, they did not talk about the fact is black people tend not to read anyway, okay? So I'm not one of those people who pretends that I'm going to wait for most black people to read in the first place, all right? So I don't
hold on. But what I'm saying, I know I'm conflating it. I know I'm conflating it.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, we're asking, Seku's going to understand this part. Yeah, I said Seku's going to understand this part. We're asking everybody to know that the black man is God without doing knowledge to born cipher. You know what I mean? Like, we're asking everybody to do that.
I don't believe black man is God in the first place.
We gotta do baby steps.
That reference wasn't for you, Doc. That reference.
I feel you. We gotta do baby steps. Even Huey.
I don't do baby steps. Huey P. Newton was very clear. He wrote about how black capitalism can actually work for our people. The baby steps he took went downhill, unfortunately, because Black Panther Party messed up when they started trying to be all those other things. But the point still is, for black men specifically, because I always talk about the only productive stage of Black Panther Party was the first stage, and that's where they did the medicine, the health work, and the food pantries. Everything else, the berets, the guns, all that other stuff was just nonsense.
That's all performative. I agree.
Yeah. And this is performative as well. When we tell black men that you're taking baby steps to protect black women, but wait a second, when there's problems happening to black men, we don't tell them we're taking baby steps to get to the point of helping black men. Because black men for centuries, you can look at back in the days of Frederick Douglass and them, they have said that we have to do this now because these are the voices for our people. Black men were the ones who were in front of the white political leaders, right? Since the days, even before Frederick Douglass was friends with Abraham Lincoln. So again, if we're not allowed to take baby steps for black men, why should I care about these baby steps that black men insist for themselves from us?
And I think we're going to have to bring this to a close.
Well, all right there, black men, y'all, look here. The baby steps cannot be you're reading a book, all right? Y'all at the grown man, this is grown man stuff.
All right,
Give us
the steps then. Give us like 2 things that brothers need to do, specifically.
Well, you asked me what should black men do, and I says, well, I want y'all to self-reflect on what y'all should do, but if your conclusion is to read more, if your conclusion is we should read more, then I mean, that's why I can't stand book clubs in the first place, because it's a bunch of waste of time most of the time anyway. But I mean, the first step is
I love
reading. Yeah, I can't stand them. They're not they tend not to be challenging each other. They tend to be just a bunch of jargon so everybody's cool at the end. I tell people it's okay to disagree and dislike each other. Did we learn something? That's the only thing I care about. So black men, since you don't know stages for yourselves apparently, here's the first stage. I look here, I love black men so much that I'm a joke because that's the thing about that's the thing about black people. Black folks, we pick on each other because we love each other. And we are annoyed with each other. That's why black people pick on each other. When we stop picking on each other, it's because we've decided to ignore each other altogether. Okay? So I love black men, but I will say your first step has to be okay, first of all, what is your assumption? How do you define black men leadership? If you think it's something that just exists because some people use religion, they'll say in the Bible or in the Quran or in the Torah. Look here, y'all. If y'all want to use these religious documents, that's on you. But in real life, do you have to be in charge just because, even if you don't know what the heck you're talking about? If you don't know what you're talking about, should you therefore have these spaces where there are other people who are not possibly of the same gender who can provide this framework? And again, this is explained by Amy Ashwood Garvey, Amy Jackie Garvey, Anna Julia Cooper, Septima Clark was.
Shout out to Anna Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah.
John. Yep.
Septima Clark made a statement. She did a speech, but she did not waste time addressing this that often because for black women, it is a time waster. Like Ella Baker explained it over and over again because she got annoyed with black men. Septima Clark made her statement towards Martin Luther King Jr. and the other black men, and then she moved on to do the work to help black people be able to vote. Because as black women, it is a distraction to have to explain this. So therefore, when black men think that we've given up on them, we're ignoring them, sometimes we have to. Because if we were to explain something every single time, it takes our attention away from the larger goals for black people. If I have to make sure black men feel tickly and comfortable every day, like tickle, 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 then it takes away from the larger outcomes for our people. It makes sure black men are comfortable. Black men are not offended. And in the meantime, the goals for our people, health, education, economic development, is lost because all that matters is how black men are doing. So I want black men to reflect on that.
All right, well, we've just come to the conclusion of another great class. And the good thing is everyone should walk away with a lot to consider. This is Professor Kimya's class. Let's make sure we do this in grand fashion. All right? Let's make sure we do this in grand fashion.
Black diamond, black diamond. Black diamond, black diamond. Black diamond, black diamond. Black diamond, black diamond.
Grandpa Crump. Yee! All right, so you've been enjoying another great episode. This was Black Patriarchy in Professor Kimya's class. It sounds like we're begging for part 3 because I don't think you finished. So we'll see.
It depends on what black men want. Tell black men they can give their feedback as well.
All right.
Power and Emmanuel, you just got so much knowledge, yo. You kicking mad knowledge. Yeah. Thank you, Emmanuel. Talking about hoarding of power. And that's exactly it. Because like we had talked about 2 weeks ago, women can be an abuse of power as well. Like, you know, abusing people is not something that's just one race. It's not just one gender, one sexuality, and so forth. Humans are abusive since the origins of humans. But what we're talking about is what's happened in the majority of collectives of people and what can be done to address that instead of hiding it. Because progressing our people, because you remember like we talked about during transatlantic slavery and black women having to stay with black men despite violence because the other option was to be lynched, hanged from a tree, right? So, but I want black women to know And also black men who are being abused, that we do have more options. We don't have to just stay with somebody now to escape, being hanged from trees. But this also requires addressing power and abuse of power within our people.
Ashe. All right. Well, I think you just closed this out, Doc. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks with more Professor Kimya.
So this is going to be part 3?
It can. Hey, look.
I defer to what you two, what you all want, and what other black men, if they want to talk about this some more, or if they want to tackle another aspect of it, so that people don't start fussing at me. I don't want y'all mad at me.
Ain't nobody mad at you.
Not mad at me.
Ain't nobody mad.
Peace.
Ain't nobody mad at you.
Hey, that was a great